the whole city, and the most amazing transport meet that I had about 8 months ago was in Pukekohe. And Pukekohe, 5 years ago, if you went into Pukekohe, it'd all be about roads and not a single thing about public transport, and they would have laughed you out of the house if you had started talking bus or trains. The only thing they wanted to talk about was public transport. So times have changed, and we really need to reflect that in the sentiment, not just it's business as usual. A full integrated transport system is going to require by nature a much stronger focus on public transport and active transport. Now, I know you get that. I just want to address, Madam Chair, thank you for a little bit of latitude here, address the issue of the public in the new developing areas, not in the middle of town, but the new developing areas, their view on what they would see as being optimum for transport. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good feedback. Less roadie. Excellent. Member Ngamane.
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Just looking, you have quite a thorough engagement process with Māori, and you have, and I'm sure in reading the report that's intended to continue in terms of the engagement. I'd be really keen, and I'm not sure whether that would be in future updates back to the Development Committee or perhaps direct to our Secretariat to actually know the outcomes of that engagement, kind of that end of it, to know what the issues are that are being raised and how they're being incorporated into the kind of final options that are being developed, and that could be done.
Yep, through you, Madam Chair, happy to progress that. We are continuing our huis with the iwi across the region, and through the first phase we developed a set of mana whenua values that we can incorporate into the scopes of the future investigations, and so we're continuing about how we can work best to actually deliver on that. So happy to provide progress on that.
That's great. So in terms of outcomes, what they're raising and how they're being responded to. Thank you.
Councillor Penrose.
Madam Chair, since I put my hand up, you pretty much nailed it before, but I just want to raise it at Audit and Risk on Monday. It was raised there that in regards to grade separation and comments in regards to grade separation, that huge part to play there is Kiwi Rail. And whilst we continue to say AT, but the biggest factor here is Kiwi Rail. So I think that needs to be factored in, and the pressure needs to be applied. So.
Yep. Okay, no, good point. Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Sure. I'm just looking at the transport networks, particularly the north, and I'm familiar with most of the things that are here, like Penlink and the various upgrades, so I won't ask any questions on those, but there's a 9 here, new connection to Grand Drive. I'm not that familiar with that, and it's not, I can't see it as a 9. I'm assuming we're talking Grand Drive in Ariwa.
Yep, through you, Madam Chair. It's the connection up through the new future urban area up. So
it's connecting to the other side of the motorway.
Yeah, okay. It's providing a connection of Wainui up through to Grand Drive and a connection through to Oriwa.
Okay, yep. So that's that. The other thing I note, and this goes to future growth, is light rail to the north. Has that been part of this process? Because obviously the busway is future-proof for light rail.
No.
At the current stage, what we're looking at is the identification of where that corridor could go from Albany through all the way up to Grand Drive, and looking at what would be the footprint to accommodate a number of different public transport modes as we work through with the other work that's happening, particularly around the city centre through to Albany, about what would be the future mode and what would the capacities need. So through here at this stage, we've identified the need for a corridor to connect all the way through up to Oriwa, with park and ride and stations at different points along that corridor, and ensuring that we've got a footprint that can accommodate a number of modes.
And is that also tying in with the second harbour crossing, particularly one that would be light rail based?
So, yeah, that ties into the work that's happening there, because any future connection from the CBD would need to go through up to Orewa or be able to provide for transitions on the way through to that. Yeah.
And the other question I've got, and again, I don't see it shown here, and that's the Gulf Harbour ferry services, and particularly the Gulf Harbour ferry. I mean, next year we're going to see an increase from 12 sailings up to 30, and that makes a significant contribution to the transport network. So are those sorts of services, other than roads, part of your study? Because I know at a number of meetings, the ferry services were raised, the light rail was raised, often.
Yep, through you, Madam Chair. The provision of how the future urban zones and the transport would connect into the existing network is certainly something that's been looked at. So how you could connect these areas to future residents in this area could connect into the ferry services has been looked at, and the changes to the ferry services are being looked at as part of that ATAP RLTP proposals. But one of the issues here is how to ensure that these future urban areas are connected to that, and that's some of the improvements that's shown through the green line here, which shows more of a public transport so that can link into the peninsula, and also through Penlink being able to provide for changes to the potential of the road network there to provide more road space for those PT services to connect into the ferry.
Okay, and my last question just goes to park and rides. Quite obviously, we've got existing park and rides, so Tiha, Silverdale, there's a new one proposed for Rosedale, there's a new one proposed with respect to Penlink, there's another possibility up in Wainui. Are those locations being identified as part of this process?
And through Madam Chair, yes, that's being identified to look at what's going to be the best for those future communities, and as we work through the subdivision plans for that, exactly where they're going to be and how they could fit into the residential areas and also the more commercial business areas. So we're working through what the footprints would be for that. That's one of the investigations that we'll need to go through in the next phase.
And I guess the other concern that I just put on the table is, I mean, so far the footprints have been woefully inadequate for the park and ride patronage, and I would suggest that we need to dramatically increase our footprints.
Yep, exactly. We might be able to go up. Councillor Wood.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just interested in the northwest urban growth area. And my particular issue in relation to transport is ferry services, because in last term of council, the Mayor and the Prime Minister opened the new terminals at Beach Haven and Hobsonville, and we've now put feeder buses onto those two terminals, but the fares are astronomically high compared to what you pay to go from Beach Haven to the city. I mean, it's $3.10 now with a hop card, and it's $8 with a hop card, using your hop card on the ferry. So, or $7 from Beach Haven, $8 from Hobsonville. Yeah. Now, you know, it is a growth area, and I'm just disappointed at how many people actually use those ferries, because I would have thought, you know, in this day and age, that ferry services would be overflowing with passengers, but they aren't, and that happens at Bayswater as well. So, is it because Fuller's have got a monopoly and a stranglehold and on this with the government agencies, or is it? Well, yeah, I know, but we're opening. We're talking about a northwestern busway because people can't get to the city on public transport, but we have a feeder bus that goes from Westgate to the Hobsonville terminal, which we're paying for, and doesn't get the patronage that I would have thought it should get, and the bus and the ferry services from Hobsonville to the city aren't brimming, and they haven't had to put bigger ferries on. So there's some fundamental issue there that I think needs to be looked at, because as Councillor Darby said, Hobsonville is the the leading kind of new area that we've developed, but we haven't been able to crack it as far as those ferries are concerned. So I'd like an explanation as to what we are going to do in the future.
So that might, it's slightly out of scope, councillor Wood, but I just wonder perhaps from yeah, it is, but I'm just saying the actual discussion about the cost of ferries and that sort of thing, I think is probably getting a bit detaily. I just wondered if any comment from Auckland Transport, councillor Fletcher?
Well, I think what we need to observe as a principle, the direction that we're taking to look at 50% subsidies. You know, we've seen the change from 60% to 50% for rail, and we're going to have to arrive at some point where there is an agreed level of subsidy. It is incredibly expensive to get these ferry services off the ground, and I think everyone around this table would like to see more, given our harbour status and the opportunity that we have for really moving people more readily. But until we can actually come to grips with this whole issue of subsidy, and it might be helpful perhaps if our officer could actually comment on that, because there's been a lot of submissions on this very issue, and I know the board is very keen that we can develop it, but it comes down to the raw dollars.
Through you, Madam Chair, and that's certainly something that we're looking for in the plan here, where we're building on some of those connections to provide better public transport links and park and ride down to the ferry terminals of West Harbour and looking at Hobsonville as well, and to provide the opportunity for more patronage to make it a shorter journey and a more connected journey for those future residents, and that will go some way to looking at the subsidy levels and being able to work through that. So it is in the plan, and we're working through that in the next stages to see what is the split between the bus and the ferry process.
Yeah. But I think it's good, thank you, councillor Fletcher. It's just reminding us part of it is our discussion on subsidy.
On
you
the
know,
principles
and
that will underpin it.
Yep. Okay. Councillor Webster.
Yes, thank you for this, and can I thank the staff too for those drop-in sessions all over Auckland. That was really good and well attended in some areas. My question is, there's a couple of questions. The Western Collector in Warkworth, the proposal at the moment is to, on the map it shows a new road, but I believe the proposal at the moment is to do up Hudson Road. And my question is, why would you put money into doing up a road like Hudson Road, which has masons, contractors, roads for roads, all those sorts of heavy industrial on it, rather than just do the road behind it, which is supposed to meet with Highway 1? That's one question. The other one is, you have the Western Collector coming off McKinney Road, which I know was the plan years ago. Why would you not have it coming off as a slip road on Highway 1? Because if you come off McKinney Road, that means there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets of traffic lights in probably about 3 k's. And my last question, Madam Chair, is with the RONs, are we building the busway as part of that, or is it going to be a separate? Because if they're going to be building a Pūhoi to Warkworth RONs, would you not want to put a busway or a bus lane on that at that construction?
Okay, through you, Madam Chair. In terms of the Western Collector Road, you're correct that the alignment that we've got for the Western Collector Road is a new road that connects in with the Matakana Link Road, so it is being provided there. As Warkworth develops, there might be a need to look at and examine what's required on Hudson Road as well, but in terms of the Western Collector, it is being identified as a new corridor to connect in with the Matakana Link Road in the north.
So can I just ask you, because that's interesting, because I was at a meeting last night and on Monday where they were talking about doing up Hudson Road rather than do that new road, which seems a waste of money.